Washington and what your great senator has been doing. Debbie Thomas wrote of going to the Matterhorn in Switzerland and that tiny little village at the base of the Matterhorn called Zermatt. And it used to be that the only way you could get in there was either to hike in or helicopter in. And many of the people who would want to climb the Matterhorn, they actually had to sign a release that said that if they died in their attempt to scale that great height, they would be willing to be buried in the cemetery in Zermatt. And of course, over the years, many tried to climb that great mountain and some failed. And she described going around the cemetery. And she said there wasn't a sadness there, but there was a power, and there was an energy, and there was a strength. And she said, chiseled in granite as you went in to that cemetery were the words, "I chose to climb." And when you take on Washington and when you take on the establishment, it is a long, hard fight. When Senator Lee was standing on the floor of the U.S. Senate with Ted Cruz, and they were almost 21 hours in, and they both had sore feet and tired voices and bleary eyes, Senator Lee commented, "This is what it feels like." We are so blessed as Utahns to have a senator who is willing to stand up, stand out, and even stand alone when necessary to fight for each one of you. And whether the battle is easy or hard, Mike Lee will choose to climb. And whether he gets, we kind of joke at the office, we get him at the end of the day, and we get him to his place, and some of us pull the arrows out of the front of him, the rest pull the knives out of the back. We dust him off and say, "We'll see you in the morning, Senator. It's going to be great." But he's willing to do it day after day after day. And when the pressure gets hot, he chooses to climb. And when the battles are fierce, he chooses to climb. And so let me ask you, did you all like Mike when he chose to stand up to President Obama and his unconstitutional recess appointments? And did you like Mike? Even before he set foot in the Senate, he began the important debate to put an end to earmarks and control spending. And did you like Mike when just last week he gave a speech that laid out a beautiful, powerful, positive agenda that will help Utah families and Utah students? Did you like Mike? Yeah. And did you like Mike when he was determined and is still determined to make sure that we can stop this thing called Obamacare and, more importantly, get our country on the right track? Did you like Mike? Then we ask you to continue to stand with Mike and continue to climb. We have big mountains yet to overcome in this country, but if we stand together and if we climb together, we will do that. So help me show how much we like Mike. Please welcome your Senator, Mike Lee.
Great to be back in America. Thank you. can hear us in Washington. Just heard from Ted Cruz in Texas. He says Utah wins. That's the sound of freedom. You know, I don't hear that every day in Washington. But this is what it sounds like, and this is what it feels like when we take on the establishment. You know, there are a lot of people in this country who see there being a constant conflict between Democrats and Republicans, between liberals and conservatives, and there's some truth to that. But there's a lot more truth to the statement that there is a grand conflict between the Washington, D.C. political establishment and the American people. And we will stand with the people. You know, a few months ago, our president decided in early July that he was going to change Obamacare, that he was going to rewrite Obamacare, that he was going to rewrite it in his own image, that he was going to implement it in the fashion that he deems fit. He said, you know, we're going to let big businesses off the hooks and not enforce the employer mandate, but we're still going to hold hardworking Americans to task. Does he have the power to do that? I didn't think so either. And it occurred to me, you know, there's just one way to stop this. We can't challenge him in court. There's not time. I'm not even sure that that would work. I mean, given the fact that the Supreme Court already rewrote Obamacare twice in order to save it. I said, well, you know, there is one power that Congress has. One power that it still generally jealously guards.
Power of the purse!
One power that James Madison recognized in Federalist 58 was one that Congress could use to keep the government intact, and that's the spending power. And I said, if President Obama's not going to follow the law, if he says the law is not ready to implement, we are not going to fund it.
Yeah!
And so I made a statement that at the time I didn't regard as all that remarkable. I said I will not vote for any funding mechanism, any continuing resolution, any spending bill that contains funding for the further implementation and enforcement of Obamacare. Now, some people criticized me for that. Some people called that radical. I said, this is exactly what I promised to do, and I'm just keeping my promise to my voters in Utah. After all, isn't that what we're supposed to do, is keep the promises we make to voters? After all, isn't that what we're supposed to do, to stand up for our rights, for your rights under the U.S. Constitution?
Freedom!
Now, let me ask you a question. Do Washington, D.C. bureaucrats know how to make decisions for your health and that of your family? Are they in a better position to make those decisions than you are? Are we going to let them take over 1/6 of our nation's health care without sounding so much as a whimper? Then join with me in this effort. Join with me in our ongoing effort to restore constitutionally limited government, to make sure that we have government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We live in difficult times, challenging times, times that cause us to question a lot of what's going on around us. But, you know, as I look to the future, I see that it's morning again in America. It's morning again in America because the American people are standing up and they're recognizing that this is their government. It does not belong to Washington. It belongs to us. This land, the land of the United States of America, is a land that was meant to be occupied by free men and women, and we will stand free. We will stand together. We will defend each other's rights. We will stand up for each other's rights from all enemies of freedom, foreign and domestic. You know, we became a nation a couple hundred years ago. We became a nation at a time when we recognized that it was important for us to come together and recognize that our previous national government based in London was treating us oppressively. It was taxing us too much. It was regulating us too heavily. It was so distant from the people that it was far from them, and it was slow to respond to their needs. So we put together a limited purpose national government, one with just a few basic responsibilities. It'd be in charge of providing for our national defense, regulating trade or commerce between the states and with foreign nations, establishing a uniform system of weights and measures, protecting trademarks, copyrights, and patents, and just a few other basic things. By the way, was commandeering our nation's healthcare system on that list? No, it wasn't. So we started a protest effort that manifested itself on a large scale for the first time in 1773 in Boston. Boston, yeah, good fly over here. Let's salute those geese. But you know, it took us 14 years to get from Boston in 1773 to Philadelphia in 1787, where we identified the kind of government that we wanted. We went from protesting against the kind of national government we did not want to embracing the kind of national government we did want. And in many respects, we can still look to that same document today, the United States Constitution, as identifying the kind of constitution, the kind of government we want. We understand that for more than 2 centuries, that document, written by the hands of wise men, raised up by the Almighty to protect freedom in America, is still intact, and we need to follow it. We recognize the fact that that document has created the ultimate opportunity society, a society that for more than 2 centuries has been second to none in terms of giving men and women from any station, regardless of whether they were rich or poor at their birth, they had the opportunity to start climbing their way up that economic ladder. And what we've seen is that as more power is consolidated in Washington, as we neglect that document, climbing up that ladder of opportunity becomes more and more difficult. Well, we've got to turn that around. We've got to embrace the same principles that have made this the land that is for freedom and for opportunity for people of all stations in life. We've got to restore the prosperity that comes only through this opportunity society, this opportunity economy, that can exist only where we have a federal government that respects the right of the people to live free and to govern themselves at the most local level possible. So in addition to the ongoing fight against Obamacare, which is ongoing, we're moving forward with a proactive agenda, a pro-growth, pro-opportunity agenda, one that will benefit people at every end of the economic spectrum, especially those at the bottom end of the economic ladder who are just trying to make their way up, and those in the middle who are in a precarious position and find themselves facing increasing uncertainty. When we look to limit government, when we look for ways to make government less oppressive, we make government more conducive to liberty and to prosperity and to economic opportunity for every single American. Now, this fight won't be easy. This effort, like every effort that's important, will never be easy. But I think we're up to the task, and when I look out at this crowd today, I know we're up to the task. I know we're ready to stand together, not just to fight against Obamacare, but also to fight for a reformed tax code, one that respects the middle class. One that tries to correct against the unfair penalties imposed by hardworking families and parents. One that eases regulatory burdens to make it easier and more affordable for people to get a higher education. One that makes it more possible for your hard-earned tax dollars to be spent more locally so that they benefit you right here at home rather than somewhere else. This effort is grueling, but it's worth it. A few weeks ago, as I was standing on the Senate floor with my friend Ted Cruz, you know, up until about 2 a.m., it was pretty easy because we found ourselves just having a great time. Everybody else left us by about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. But by 2 a.m., we were getting a little hazy. And so I said, Ted, we're going to have to shake things up a little bit. You know, we're going to have to spice it up a little bit. And so I pulled out my Constitution. So for the next 4 hours, Ted and I regaled the entire country. I'm sure everybody was sitting on the edges of their seats. To a lengthy discussion of the Commerce Clause and of the Spending Clause and the Privileges and Immunities Clause. Did you find that riveting? Yeah! You know, what I found so amazing and so encouraging was that throughout the night I continued to get text messages and tweets from you, from people right here in Utah who are still awake. You stayed awake with us all night, and thank you. By the time it got to be about 6 in the morning, I got a different set of text messages. Some of them started saying, Mike, you look a little bit tired. That's when I turned to my friend Ted, and I said, Ted, this is what it feels like to take on the establishment. Yeah.